I'm going to try and create a sketch for this part, which is a symmetrical part. So I'm going to blow this off. And I'm going to work in quadrant number 2 just for kicks. Go to Profile. I'm going to create a line, then a curve, and then a line, and then a curve, another curve, and another curve. And then I'm going to go to the hole feature and create a concentric hole. And I'll use this grid here to snap that. Create another hole from that concentric point and snap to that same grid. And then from this point, snap to that grid. That's fine. And then what you want to do is create an axis from that center point to this center point over here. And create another axis from this center point to this center point. And I click off in no man's land so nothing's active. Highlight this whole thing. And then we'll go to auto constrain, reference. This line would be my datum and this line would be my datum. And then I would do a symmetrical line. And that symmetrical line would be this one here. Stack dimension it, say OK. And see how it dimensioned to that tangent point? I don't like how it did that. Okay, and I don't like this dimension either. So, before I auto constrain this, first thing I would try and do is create just a manual constraint from that center point to this datum. I want to force that. So you might find it helpful just to force a dimension to the center of the hole. Okay, so I can bring this dimension down. Alright, so sometimes I just auto constrain it, and if I don't like it, I just undo it and then put dimensions in there that you know you want to control and let it work around that. So we go back to auto constraint in the action pad. Under reference element, these are still my datums. We'll stack dimension this and see what happens. Okay, so it didn't put that dimension up there, but it did still add this one. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. So again, you might want to dimension to the center hole. So if I put in a dimension from here, I should have grabbed that point first. Yeah, it didn't let me get it. That's why I always get the points first when I constrain this. There's your point, and then to this datum. We'll see if that helps it. So all I had to do is put in 2 constraints and then auto constrain this. Reference this element and then this element. Stack dimension it and symmetry about this line. Select OK. I won't move this. I'm just going to set these datums and see if it looks okay. So use your control button. I'm just going to hit the anchor real quick. Click off in no man's land and it's fully constrained. So you can see it was minimal effort. All I had to do is constrain to center holes, and all of a sudden it's able to figure out everything else I need. If I did this right, if I change this dimension and change that to 0.5, I should have changed both of them. It should have linked that. It's probably part of the new enhancements. And these two should have been linked because they're the same size. So if I change it to 0.3, they should have both changed. So It's a little disappointing that it works fine on V5 and it doesn't work here. Anyways, you'll notice that the H and the V are red. That's why when I do this, I always use that dialog box so I can turn those off. Okay, so you have to select both lines. If I put on the anchors, I got to come back and grab that H and that V, and I have to delete those because I've put on anchors, and anchors override the horizontal verticals, so they would be eliminated. If I go to analysis and analyze this, it's constrained, and it's not catching that this H and V are over constrained, telling it that there's too many constraints on here, and therefore when they try and release it, engineering data control will come back and say, what the heck are you doing? These can't be here. So if EDC calls you up saying, hey, there's something wrong with your sketch, 9 times out of 10, this is what's gone on, is you've got an over constraint that the sketch analysis doesn't pick up. Okay, so you should be able to do that. I'll do it again if you want me to go at a slower pace for this. I'm just going to highlight the whole thing and delete it. Under profile, okay, the key is I start at one spot, I went down and over 3 inches. Okay, so when I click a position, I can turn this arc on right here and click over here, and it should go into arc mode, but sometimes it's a little tricky getting that to work. So instead of doing that, what I do, I'm going to go down 1 and over 3, and I'm going to click, but I'm going to hold my cursor and leave it there and drag a box. When I drag that box, I can release, and it converts it from a line to an arc. Oh, I probably should have grabbed that one. And then I go ahead and grab this right here. And now the key is I want to go down 1 and over 3, line this thing up so it is symmetrical. I have to build it symmetrical. And then I want to curve, so I'm going to click and hold and drag a box and let go. Puts me back into this tangent arc mode. If I'm doing it right, it creates that tangent right there. And I'm going to come over here, note what part of the grid I'm on, click and drag a box, and then let go, and it switches it from the line mode to the arc mode. I'll come over here and I'll line this up. See how I'm lining that up on the grid to match the other one? I'll click and hold. It switches from line. As soon as I drag a box and let go, it switches it to the arc. So I'll go ahead and select this point right here. I want to get right up here, so hopefully I get my tangent. Oh no. Yep, I got my tangencies. If you don't have tangencies, you want to make sure that you go and set the tangencies. Go to sketch, and I'll pop in the holes. Start here, and I'll just come out to this grid over here. I'm going to select here, and then I'm going to come out to the same grid. I'm going to try and get a grid right there. And then I'll go from that concentricity and go to that same grid over here. Make sure I'm snapping to that same grid. I think I got it. Maybe I didn't. Okay, and then I added my axes, and my axes act as a datum. Whoops, I meant to do it out of the action pad. So I create my axes, and then I got to click off in no man's land, and I want to create a single constraint, and I don't have that over here. So I'm going to come down here and go to constraint. I'm going to constraint from this point to this datum. Now I've located a hole. Now it's kind of hard to see, so what I'll do is drag this up, and I'll do one more constraint from this point to this line. Now instead of me trying to figure out all the other constraints, I just know if you create constraints to the center of the holes, I can pretty much highlight this profile and go to auto constrain in the action pad and select those axes as my datums. And you want to make it a symmetrical part. So when I do this and click over here, what it should do is recognize anything symmetrical and link them together. So we'll stack dimension this and say OK. I'll use my control button and grab these two lines. Instead of doing this anchor here, I'm going to use the dialog box out of the action pad. This will enable me to fix those and set these horizontal verticals off so they won't be on the screen anymore, and this part is fully constrained. Alright, see how quick and easy it was to create a symmetrical part, and all I had to do is add 2 dimensions and the rest was done for me. Alright, I want you to make a cheat sheet on how you did auto constrain here. Make a cheat sheet that explains what you picked up for constraining, what you used as your datums, stack dimension it, and what you used as your symmetry line. And then you can make a picture like that, and you're good to go on that one.